everyone. Thank you for joining us again. It's Lisa, and we are really just going to continue the impromptu series that we kind of started around nonprofits and government and just other basic human rights that we were discussing. If you saw our last video, you saw that we kind of went through some different topics, and it's going to be very similar setup too. We're just kind of having a conversation, learning from our friend Google as well, but also just from our personal knowledge and things. And we left off on education, and we were talking about education and really kind of trying to figure out why is it that people go into debt when they're getting higher ed. How can that be something that other countries have, free education? You go for higher ed and it's free, and it's something that hasn't really quite gotten traction here in the United States. So we're going to dig in more and sort of look at also the role that the nonprofits have when it comes to education, which Martina and I see a lot in our line of work, that we see that connection all the time, and really seeing like what gaps nonprofits have filled in that government, that we, from our perspective, feel the government could actually have a bigger role in filling that gap. I know we left with Martina giving sort of some of the questions. I want to give her a chance to kind of continue her thought process and just dig into nonprofits, education, government, and all of it.
I remember where we left off. So let's dig in. But I think like one thing like Lisette and I touched on actually during a break is that really this idea of was it we were talking about like the after school programs, right? And like we were saying how the like these after school programs such as what the Boys and Girls Club, where you said after school matters, and have come, and again, like I just want to say we're not talking shit about nonprofits. They have been an essential part of a lot of our lives, no matter what your color or your socioeconomic status is. But again, why are some of these organizations playing such a key role in education and the government is not? And also we, kind of talked a little bit during the break about really what in other countries, like what are they doing around free education that we can't be doing? Like I know again, like we have researchers out here, people who are like studying this and learning more about it, but it's not being implemented by our federal government. And some things need to happen at the federal level because that's where we're going to see big policy changes. The local and the state level are great too, of course, like go out and support that. But these type of changes need to happen at the federal level, especially things with healthcare and education, which is so essential to that basic human right. And other countries have been able to get it right. And it's still kind of mind boggling that, countries like Germany and so forth, education is free. What are they doing over there that we can't do? Like, what is it? And don't get me wrong. I'm sure, there is a population difference. We have more people. Populations look a little different, but they're still able to make it work. And so, I ask anyone who's watching this video, if you have more insight around this, because I'm truly fascinated. Why is this working in other countries, but the United States is not trying to adopt this? There's no reason that we are asking our young people, and I've had to do it, Lisette has to do it. We both have attended university and paid a lot of money, or we've gotten loans out. And so I mean, I'm in debt to my eyebrow, like from student loans. And I was stupid enough to go get a master's degree, so I'm still in debt up to here, like right here to this hairline. And so, what is it? Our country wants to be so educated, so liberated, but you can't pay for your citizens' education. You put that burden on them. And, like, oh, well, hey, we'll give you the loan, but you got to pay us back. Why? Like, why is that not free? Like, why is a higher degree or just higher education not free? And I don't understand why the United States is not trying to learn more about this. And again, like I said, I don't know everything. Maybe they are. Maybe there's somebody out there. I know we have the Department of Education, but they're kind of shitty too. Let's be honest, especially in this administration.
Yeah.
So I'm really, that's kind of what I'm, asking, all of y'all out there, comment about it, make suggestions because I'm really fascinated. Or share your thoughts around, you know, why do you believe the United States won't take on universal education in a sense past grade 12 in a way? I'm just very curious about that myself because it's just I see it as a big downfall for the United States, the only country that puts its citizens in that much debt in order to better yourself. So you're telling me you want me to better myself because you don't want to give me social services, but I try to better myself and then you put me in debt. Which is it? I,
Are
I
we,
can't win for losing.
are we in the billions when it comes to student debt?
Oh, honey, I'm sure.
I think
Mine alone and the people I know, me and a few of my friends, we probably hit 1 million between us. Like it is detrimental.
because I think I saw recently something like it's in the billions and it hit like some astronomical number that just should not be a burden to citizens of this country or just people in this country, whether you're a citizen, like it's just it's mind-boggling. But to the question that you were asking about, like why the United States, I'm gonna throw this out there, because it just popped in my head, and it doesn't really bridge the nonprofit government thing. But what about the role of white supremacy
Oh,
in
that's all up in this.
in this idea that we can't have free education for all? Because when you have free education for all, obviously it's equity, right? Like you're gonna have equal access for everybody to get it. And as we've talked in previous videos, the powers to be, who are predominantly white, uh don't don't want to see that happen, right? Like, and white supremacy is the basis of obviously a lot of the policies and systems that the United States created on. And you can't have equity in education if obviously you don't dismantle that white supremacy thinking and an ideology, um, which then in turn nonprofits have had to fill the gap for primarily a lot for people of color,
Yep.
to just kind of close that gap.
That's the point.
And it's like, well, even if the government got involved, to what extent will they really want to make that gap smaller if it's predominantly white people?
So white people, they're gonna let their country fail because they want a group. I mean, the majority of the country is minorities. So they want the majority of the country to fail because of the color of your skin. That's what you're saying. That's pretty much it. Yeah. That is. I think that's a true statement. I had not thought of it, but because I think white supremacy is everything. White supremacists might be in the kind of bread that you eat. I'm joking, but not joking. I'm just saying, hey, you like wheat versus white, sourdough versus pumpernickel. I don't know. But as such, that is a really good point because if you have universal higher education, because up until 12th grade is free, so we had it in higher education that would be equity for people who are Native American, Asian American, Black, Brown, everybody would be open to that. And you would think that's what a country would want is people to be educated. But you that is such a good point. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe that's a way to keep people of color and people who are different down.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could. I mean, again, you were talking and it just made me think because obviously a lot of our previous conversations have revolved around it. And that has to play a role in it. I think the systems, the way our educational system was created was by a white supremacy ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you change that, can we really have equity in education? And again, if we go back to the conversation of nonprofits and the role that they play, yeah, they'd have to step in and a lot of times, a lot of, predominantly people of color communities, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Black and Brown communities having to step in and provide the after school programming. So, the extra help that kids need because their schools are, overpopulated. So teachers don't have the ability to really give time and attention and teaching in a right way because, all kids learn differently. Like I learn differently than you learn, than you, and others. And when you have a classroom of 35 kids, you have to standardize the way that you're teaching because there's no way you can, make that individual. But if your class size was smaller, which in some suburban and private schools
Yes.
they are smaller,
But they're paying extra. They're paying for
you
that.
are able to maybe give tailor a little bit more, spend a little more extra time with certain students or just helping them through and learning and helping in that way. uh so there's so much to it now that we're talking about it. It just makes
Mm-hmm.
like there's so many layers to this, and I can see why nonprofits, fill that gap a lot of the times in providing tutors and providing just programming after school, literacy programs that you see kind of pop up in there, and really just kind of helping and even like preparing to go to college. Nonprofits have had to step in, right? Like and had to say,
That's
okay,
their
how do
program. Yep.
like how do you prepare, you know whether it's a first generation that's going to college, right? This is the first time anyone in their family is going to college. How do you navigate that? Because I was the first part of the first gen. My
Mm-hmm.
sister went and then I went, but like she navigated differently and I navigated differently, and and it's like, man, if you don't have that support, it's kind of like you're set up to fail, right? Because you're just set
Sure.
up to go. You go to your classes, you don't know that you should be networking, that you should be, doing all these extra things. But if you're like, for me, like I was a commuter student, I was limited at how long I could stay on campus
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, well, I couldn't afford to stay on campus
Mm-hmm.
because it was already expensive to just go. So I could only stay on campus for a little bit, and and it was just I couldn't stay for all of these other things that were happening, in the evenings because I wasn't gonna get home. There was no Uber back then. There was like, yeah, and even if there was, I would
Who
have
can
been
afford Uber? $30 a lift? Girl, bye.
no, like I was a college kid. Like I don't, like I don't have like my parents were rolling in dough to be able to say like, oh, you just take an Uber, like it'll be fine. Like no,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
okay, like everybody else. And I think a lot of it has to do with white supremacy. We always kind of go back to it, and kind of seeing that and creating that equity. And the government not being able to change that because the powers to be wanted to stay.
They won't let it happen. That's what I said. They won't let it happen.
Yep.
They won't let it happen. And that's why, I think I maybe have said this. I think I've said it in some other videos. This is why some people just need to die off. That's kind of what it is. And not die off and leave those ideologies, but those ideologies need to die with them. They just do.
Yeah.
They just really do. Um I mean, I was not a commuter student, but I'm in debt for that shit now because I came out of state when I was at LSU. Go Tigers, which is, I'll come back to that too. There's some fucked up this is there. I was coming from Mississippi, and there's no way I was commuting from Mississippi to Baton Rouge, but like I said, I'm paying for that now because I'm in debt up to my hairline. And I just want to touch on a minute too. I don't know how this ties into nonprofit, but I just think about as teachers, some of the most overworked and devoted people. I mean, everybody knows this, but no one's trying to fix the problem. And I look at a university like LSU, whose primary profit is, of course, that it's a major SEC institution. I mean, we just won a championship this year. The head coaches in these universities be making millions of dollars a year. Professors with 2 and 3 degrees, 2 PhDs is not making that type of money. Why? Because they're not bringing in the money to the university. And to me, it's still, I think about that in terms of just education in general. Like, teachers and educators just don't get the type of benefit that they deserve. And they're just often overlooked. And just like I've heard people, again, I'm not a parent. So, I'm not participating in all the remote learning that's going on across the country due to COVID. But we've gotten some parents who are really up in ante about, like, teachers ain't doing their job. Why we got to do this from home, honey? We are in a pandemic. Teachers are doing the best they can with what they have, and they don't have much if you're depending on the government, obviously. They just really, I've had teachers go into their own pocket and buy school supply for students that I know of. And so, to me, it's just really mind-boggling. I think people just really need to step back and really try to understand more of this lens of, like, our educators and education, and really where to me, it's just like a failing system, because nothing has changed. And I don't know how many years, if anything has changed. I don't know educational policies and regulations, but I'm just, obviously something needs to be done. I just think it is quite ridiculous that we have teachers barely getting payment or getting a salary that's not equal to their worth. And it's just like their time, their energy. And some of these teachers are very intelligent. They have advanced degrees, they have advanced certifications. And even, I don't know what it's like at private schools. I don't know how much they get paid there. But I don't know if it's anything astronomical. But I have mad respect for teachers, though, because I think they are God's people, honey. They are really doing it. And they're really those who just don't get recognized. They don't have a lot of recognition, and they're working for little to nothing. And just the ones that I've seen, even during this pandemic, especially a lot of my friends that I have, their kids are on the younger end of the spectrum. So they're under, like, 8 years old. And just looking at some of the videos they've sent me, like, teachers are, being creative, just trying to keep the kid interested. Yeah. And, these are like kindergartners and first graders. So they're, it's difficult. And, they're really, giving it their all and trying to make it interactive for the kids, and just doesn't get enough respect for that. And yet they have shitty pay. And that's all I'm gonna say. And I'm gonna sip some water.
No, I think you bring up such a good point about the pandemic and sort of the impact it's had, obviously, in our educational system and things like that. And you said, like, how it ties into nonprofits. I've seen nonprofits who have, like, opened their facilities for kids to be able to come in so that they have access to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And it's like, the fact that a student could not have access to Wi-Fi at their home because of whatever reason, like, that to me is, like, in this day and age, like, whose responsibility was that? Like, like, particularly in an emergency situation, like, I don't think it's the parents' responsibility, because it's the school that had to close down. I think the government should have stepped in and say, like, okay, we're gonna work with the Comcast and the AT&Ts of this country to figure out how can we ensure that everybody, during however long this pandemic lasts, all students will have access to internet. Like, to me, that to me is the most simplest thing the government could have done, and said, like, okay, we're gonna work everybody, whoever, doesn't matter, like, if you don't have internet, we're gonna make sure that you have it. And that's it. And maybe give a stipend to some of the parents who had to upgrade their internet because they have 3 kids now using their internet. They're working from home. So how about you cover the cost? Because if you had to upgrade your internet, that costs money in some instances.
Yes, it does. Internet is not cheap.
It's not. And I was like, they couldn't even give a stipend for that, for parents who, like, and whatever you could have come up with a process, an application, but I don't know, a tracking process. Like, you could have created this and done that. But instead, you depend on some nonprofits to step up and figure out and solve it for you. And then you have, I know there was, like, something in the city that we voted on about, like, having access to internet or something like that. I think we voted.
I don't know what happened. Do you know what happened? I remember seeing it on the ballot.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. I think it passed. I think I heard, but I don't. the inner workings of how that's going to be implemented, or what, I have no idea who's going to take the lead on it. I don't know if their city government's going to take on it, or they're going to reach out to an institution
Girl, you know they just gotta put that off on somebody else. They don't want to do it.
in the city to kind of make that happen, and work it out. But there's just so many, like, that to me is, it was like a missed opportunity. And obviously our current administration that's still in office did not take this whole pandemic thing seriously. He did not take the virus seriously. It was all, the whole administration just
It's a hoax. What are you talking about? It's a hoax.
doesn't exist.
What are you
But and I am, again, celebration that they're going out January 20th cannot come quicker
Girl.
enough, because I am ready for it.
Lady birthday gift for me, honey.
But that is a video for another day. Join us at our Instagram.
I know.
We'll probably do something on Instagram for.
We should go live for that one, maybe. I think that's going to be an interesting day. You got that right.
But I think when it came, because a lot of people say COVID has been sort of this sort of flashlight on a lot of inequities and all these things that have been in existence, and have just brought it up to the sort of the limelight. And I think education was one of those.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of resources, the fact that there were students who did not have access to a tablet or anything to be able to get online and internet and all these things. And again, nonprofits having to step in and find those resources for students. In here in Chicago, a lot of them were Black and brown communities that needed the support, and having to do that. And again, it goes back to the question we could be going back, like, where does the role of the government start and end? And then where does the role of the nonprofit start and end as well? And that to me is just, for me, it's that $1 million question. Because if you know what that answer is, please write in the comments below. Let us know. If you follow us on Instagram, DM us and let us know what we should
know something shit, because this is, and like I said, Lisette and I both work for nonprofits, and my nonprofit, we actually had to provide resources around that, like where to find adequate internet, how much does it cost, and like I had to step back myself and take myself and be like, oh, let me watch what I'm saying, because I was like, because like you said, so there was something going on here in the city. I think it's still with Comcast. You could get starter internet or something for like $10. And I think you could even get a few months of free, depending on if you qualify for certain things. And I'm thinking to myself, who can afford $10? And I was like, whoa, I don't know somebody's situation. Like, you don't know. Like, hell, there have been times my mom and dad couldn't afford $10 growing up, because when you're trying to take care of a household, you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to keep food on the table, the lights on, $10 a month for internet. And that's just starter internet. Like, what if you have more than one kid? You probably need something more advanced. And I was like, whoa, that is so true. Because everybody can't afford that $9.99 a month. That's a lot. Depending on what the situation is.
Especially when you think about the costs that some families have seen increase because of this pandemic. Obviously, food costs, because you're buying food more often, because you're providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you're seeing your groceries kind of depleted a lot quicker.
Yes.
And how do you supplement that? And obviously, food pantries and things have stepped in to do that. Nonprofits are holding food drives and all these things, and you're seeing it happen because of the increased need of a lot of things. Because most of us are still at home. I'm fortunate, and you're fortunate that we're able to work from home.
Right.
So you and I have conversations just like we see increases in things that we just need to buy more often because we're at home all the time. And I can imagine, a family of 5 who are now at home all the time, have, their needs going up, electricity, going up, all these things, because you're using more often, you're at home more often. And there's just so many layers to this. And I know we've gone on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it all connects back to sort of the need that we have for, the government to step in and policies and systems to be changed, you know, and I
Mhm.
think when I think about the incoming administration and what they have on hand, there's such a great opportunity for them to really take the lead on changing a lot of policies, a lot of systems, and hopefully getting it right. You know, Joe Biden is a teacher at a community, a professor at a community college. Hopefully, you know, she uses that to pass something or encourage, you know, legislation to be passed around free education for all, you know, at least at the community college level. I'd love to see that happen, you know, like you know, where you can go and get it for free. Um, but yeah, but any final thoughts on this video, Martina, on this
Let's
topic?
remember, the Biden administration, they're not progressive now. Kamala is now she's a little bit more progressive than Joe, but I think we need to keep our. I mean, there's nothing wrong with shooting for the stars. I think people should always do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think we need to be realistic because we basically have been in a depression for the last 4 years,
Oh,
and coming out of that, people just need to, let Biden get a hold of everything and appoint his cabinet, whomever those are going to be, and just hope for the best. Because I mean, um, it's gonna take a while, but I am hopeful. I'll say that, and to wrap us up, like Lisette said, I think, stay tuned. We're going to talk about, again, one thing her and I were talking about during the break is like, how does social media influence nonprofits? I think that might be the next one up for us to bring to you all. Very interesting because as we're both saying in our work, how much social media is playing a bigger role, even now more so that we're all pretty much remote, how much more it is playing a role into like spreading the word and getting stuff out there, because a lot of things are not, even though it's still word of mouth, it's not so much kind of right now because a lot of us, we're not seeing each other as often as we could. So social media is really playing a big role, and the pandemic is kind of just a catalyst for that. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. It's great to have you all listen to us. This is really just like two girls on like a phone conversation. Just talking about all of our thoughts, which is why it's our perspective. So again, comment, provide feedback. If you have book recommendations on this, articles, speakers that have, spoke about this, anything. So, we can be knowledgeable about this or as we continue to learn more. So that's it from me.
thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, y'all. Have a safe holiday.